Alright, this is a demo of my, I can never remember the name of this type of wood. Catalpa? It'll be in the title. Catalpa wood. It's essentially similar to the dense. No, I don't remember. It's similar to pine. It's not a super hard wood, but it has a grain that's more like ash. So it kind of looks like ash with its crazy um, lines and really cool looking wood grain. But it's really lightweight and it's also a little bit softer, easier to kind of dent or ding, I would suppose. But it works pretty well as far as I can tell. I pulled a loaded pickguard off of one of my other Jazzmasters. So electronic wise, the only things I know for certain, because I always do certain things the same with every Jazzmaster that I put together, including that gold one behind me. The pots are full size, 1 meg for the volume and tone, and then the standard for this one, because it is set up standard, is I believe it's 50 for the tone pot. And is this still a 1 meg for the volume? I don't remember anymore, but it's normal Jazzmaster setup and a normal switch setup. So this does the neck in the jazz. They call it rhythm and lead, I think, but for me it just basically makes the neck pick up bassine by itself, and then down is standard controls where you have neck, middle, and bridge options with your toggle. I'm pretty sure these are Antiquity ones. I kind of flip flop between Antiquity 1s and Antiquity 2s, or their variants, because the import versions of an Antiquity 1 or 2 that you can get in Fenders that are Seymour Duncan designed Antiquities, to me sound as good as the ones made in the US. The only difference is where they're assembled. They're still built the same way, it's just where they're built. So if you're a person who's picky about where your pickups are built, then you probably would want the Seymour Duncan Antiquities and not the Duncan designed Antiquities. But I don't necessarily care about where it's built as long as it sounds good. In fact, my favorite necks are always Japanese made, pretty much by and large. I like the profiles. So I always buy all parts necks unless there's something else I happen to find that's a better deal. And then um, pickup wise, I just like certain kinds. I like the antiquities. There are some other ones I've heard that are good, but those are the ones I tend to buy when I'm having to shop for my own stuff. Other than that, everything is pretty normal. This is a Johnny Marr Jaguar um, bridge. I usually buy the American Professionals, but someone was selling one, and so I just grabbed it. I like them because they have the narrower string spacing, so you don't have to worry about the high and the low E falling off the edges when you get to where the neck attaches to the body as much. I use classic player tremolos, even though I'm sure some people hate them. I love them because the arm screws in. They're just like the American Professional Jazzmaster bridges, which were American made. They have a screw in arm too. Um, I like it because it's like a Strat. I don't have to worry about the arm falling out. I don't have to shove it in and yank it out to pop it in and out. It screws in, screws out. Um, yeah, I much prefer the screw in arm, but that's me. It's got the standard, for me anyways, strap locks. These are the traditional Dunlop ones. They can use real straps, normal straps, or they can be used with the locking ones like the ones behind me where they click in and you don't have to worry about dropping your guitar. The neck is a made in Mexico Fender neck. I believe this is just a classic player one because it's not worn. The one on the gold one is actually one of the road worn necks, so it's got some aging to it. Um, this I just transplanted from a body that I got the pickguard from. I just kind of swapped everything into this one because I was trading the body these were in for something different. It has a not a rosewood fretboard. It has the I think I should have slept more. Is it laurel? Whatever Fender uses for the Made in Mexico necks. I think it's perfectly fine. I often will dye them. I'll use either stain, wood stain like ebony minwax stain. Um, it's usually minwax ebony stain. I'll put it on. I'll even put it on rosewood fretboards just to give it a coat of it because it darkens the wood and it makes it look nicer. And it also kind of, in my opinion, helps kind of protect it a little bit. I know that people usually leave the wood bare, which you can. You can, and then every so often you put oil on it or whatever to condition the fretboard. I use that. and I think it helps it look a little bit nicer, a little bit darker and richer, and it also helps protect it moisture wise too. Just how I like to do it. And since I build these things usually for me, and sometimes I sell them, like a few of them I have on Reverb, and sometimes I keep them just because I made them because I wanted them. I don't usually build stuff for other people, and I don't usually build stuff with the intent to sell. I build it because I think it's fun and I enjoy the process. But sometimes someone will reach out and say, "Hey, I really like that guitar," and so I work out a trade, or sometimes I'll sell some like I'm doing now to help pay for some school stuff. If they don't sell, it won't break my heart because I didn't really build them with the intent to sell in the first place. But whatever the case, as long as they go to someone who enjoys them and like I do, and enjoys how they work and how they sound, and it's special to them, that makes a difference to me because I want them to be taken care of and treated well. At any rate, that's enough talking. You'll get to hear how the pickups sound in this kind of a wood body, because I had some people on the forum saying that wood looks really cool, I've never heard of it before. Oh, it's that tree that makes the annoying giant pea pod things. It's a weed kind of a tree or whatever. I'm like, I only know that it looks really cool, and so I bought it. um, and if they can use a pesty kind of a tree for guitar bodies, then hey, turn it into something cool. And these, I picked this one out because it looked super weird and cool with all the wood grain curves going in all sorts of different directions. I mean, it it was a no-brainer. Like, I picked the one that had the weirdest wood grain all over the place, and I used General Finish yellow on this one. General Finish is what I tend to use dye-wise for guitar bodies. I have used blue, green, yellow. I have black that I've used. I've used brown, um, and it's water-based. It works well. The only thing that sucks about water-based stuff is you have to sand it back a little bit, because it'll raise the grain. But as long as you use like 2000 grit or something really, really fine, it shouldn't take the color back off. It'll just take the little bit of roughness back down to being smooth. So when you put your finish on, which I use, I believe it's Minwax tongue oil, which isn't true tongue oil. I know, it's got a mix of things in it, but it's called tongue oil. I wipe it on and wipe it off and you put it on and then you let it sit for a little bit and you wipe it smooth so you don't get little chunks of stuff dried on it when it dries. Then you lightly sand it. I usually use, again, 2000 because I don't want to sand it off. I just want to kind of get some of the roughness back off. And I keep doing that until I'm happy with how it looks, which is usually not very many coats, 4 or 5. I don't go for like the super thick glossy finish. I want it to still kind of feel like it's wood. Because when the vintage guitars I have had and I do have, you can still feel them and they feel like wood. Versus like this, as nice as a Fender neck is, this modern Fender neck, it feels like plastic. It doesn't feel like wood on the back because it's got a thick coat of finish on it. Same with guitar bodies. A lot of them, the modern ones, feel like plastic. My sparkle green one there is pretty behind me. It's got a thick poly coat to cover up all those flakes. It feels like plastic. The green one next to it that was done by MJT feels like wood because they do really, really thin finishes, which is kind of why when I build guitars, if I don't do the finish, I usually will send it to MJT to do it because I don't want a really, really thick layer of paint. I know it's protection, and I know that it doesn't change the sound of the guitar, but it changes how it feels to me, and that matters to me. It may not matter to anyone else, but when I buy it, that's what I want. And I've also learned that the necks that I finish, because again, I usually do 3 coats on the back of a neck after I dye and stain it to color it. Typically 3, unless there's something weird that happens that makes me feel like it needs more. 3 is enough to protect it from water, usually, because the can itself says for furniture to do 2 coats for furniture or something that you're going to eat, a kitchen table that you're going to eat off of. So if you can eat off of it with 2 coats, you don't really need to go more than that unless you feel like you want to. I like it when it still kind of feels like wood in your hand. When you're running along, you can kind of feel that it's wood. It's not doesn't feel like glass or plastic. Um, but everybody likes their own thing. Some people like the satin necks for the same reason, where it's not as sticky. It's a little bit more smooth and soft feeling in your hand. Some people like the gloss necks because that's what they're used to and they're comfortable with. So that was a lot of talking without any playing. Let's get into the actual pickups. Um, Pretty much going straight into my quad reverb, with the exception of my tuner. Relating to these pickups, the reason why I like Antiquity 1s and 2s is the bridge pickup on Jazzmasters is often really, really bright. These still have good low end, where it's not really brittle. The upper strings are still bright, but they're not ice picking or shrill. So you still get some of that. I guess people usually say mid-range, where it's got a little bit of low end and mid-range instead of being really, really bright. So you can still use it. Of course, you can always use the tone knob to make it more bassy. I usually don't use it. Neck pickup. Antiquity 1 and 2 neck pickups are not overly muddy or overly bassy. To me, they sound a little bit warmer than the middle pickup of a Stratocaster, or similar to a good neck Strat pickup, even though they're not constructed the same at all. They have their own thing to them. I don't want to tick people off when they say, oh, because I've had people say, oh, you've got P90s in that guitar. I'm like, no, these aren't P90s. These are Jazzmaster pickups. And they're like, well, but they're screwed to the body and, yeah, but they're not constructed the same, and they're physically different, so they have a little bit different sound. Middle position, which is hum canceling, although even without shielding, my amp is really quiet, which is another reason why I like that Fender quad reverb. Nobody wants to move it because it's like two twins. But I don't move my amps around. The neck pickup through the pots, the bassier version. It's bassier because that's how it was intended to be. It was built, Jazzmasters were built for jazz, and so they thought, well, if you have this little switch you could flip up that gives you kind of a bassier sound, that could be useful. They never seemed to really latch on to it. But with the Antiquity pickups, again, that I keep saying are my favorite, or because that can often make a Jazzmaster really muddy, so you don't really want to use it because it just is too muffly and too bassy. But Antiquity 1s and 2s usually are still pretty usable. Like, you can still do chords and they still sound okay. It's a little bit more bassy than I would want, but it's still usable. Where you pick also will make a Jazzmaster sound different. So if you find it really bright, you might try going away from the bridge and more up towards the neck. Anyway, really turned out nice. I can't complain. I got it on a whim because I was like, oh, this person makes kind of affordable bodies. Oh, that I've never heard of that wood before. They also make bodies out of tulip wood, or it might have been a different builder. And I was tempted to buy one of those because I'm like, I've never heard of tulip wood. and it looked kind of neat. It kind of reminded me of some other woods I'd worked with in the past, but something completely different too. Kind of like a really dark poplar or stainy poplar. But anyway, Capalta or Catalpa, whatever this is, um, works great for a guitar body. I mean, you could tell it still has the brightness. The softer body didn't absorb the high end or anything like that. Sometimes people say like a pine body or a softer wood body on an electric guitar will cut all of your high end and all this stuff because it's not as dense or as hard as like ash or um, although mahogany is not really the hardest of woods either, but people have all sorts of different opinions about what they like and what they don't. I like trying everything and seeing what it sounds like. That's why I have so many guitars. Is gotta try them all. And so far, I haven't really found something where I'm like, yeah, that's a stupid thing to use for a guitar. Guitar shouldn't be made with that. It's just more of like, oh, well, this is just a little bit different, but it still works totally fine. Anyway, if you stuck in this long, congratulations. I hope you enjoyed the little bit of a demo.